tonight's topic, chosen by Lara, so she's responsible, is the quantum field. And I really want to seek to achieve two things tonight: to explain why, in my experience, the quantum field allows us to understand that there is a different way of being in the world. There's a completely different way of being in the world. And secondly, that from this different way of being in the world, we can create a completely different outer world for us and for others to live in. So that's the aim. And in order to fulfill those two aims, I'm going to go around the houses a little bit, and I want to say something briefly about the history of science, which is a dangerous endeavor because my father-in-law, who I love very much, is in his 90s. He's an esteemed scientist that has lectured all over the world. And whenever he comes to one of my talks and I say that my philosophy is based on science and mysticism in equal measure, I always get a very sensitive, carefully worded email after the talk pointing out the flaws in the detail of my science. So I'm not a scientist, but I want to try and approach this subject from within the context of science. And some of what I'm going to say early on is a little bit left brain, and it's analytical, logical. So I want to ask you to try to allow this to wash over you in a reflective way. That the detail of what I'm saying is not important, and just to try to allow the felt sense of what I'm saying to resonate with you or not. So the quantum field is a kind of expression that leads to many misunderstandings due to multiple definitions and uses. Many people use it in different ways. The word quantum, as many or most of you know, is a Latin word, and it literally means amount. And in modern understanding, it's come to mean the smallest possible unit of any physical property, any material property. And the quantum field has arisen as a result of the evolution of science from what we call first principles to the subatomic world. And science, especially physics, shares something with mysticism insofar as it has always been preoccupied with the ultimate nature of reality. Physics and science, from the very beginnings, has wanted to know what is the ultimate nature of reality. And science is derived from another Latin word, scientia, which means knowledge. And science, as we know it, has really developed in one direction only. It's developed in an analytical, logical, rational, metric-based concept of knowledge. So again, it's very left brain. And we've talked about before that there are several other understandings of knowledge. So in early Greek civilization, they had three completely different words for knowledge. They had episteme, which is the knowledge of measurement, the knowledge of science. And it's where we get the term epistemology from, the study within philosophy of fact-based knowledge. And then there's the word nous, N-O-U-S, which means knowledge in the sense of intuition or common sense. It's where we get the word nous from. And it's a completely different kind of knowing. And then the third understanding of knowledge comes from the Greek word gnosis, G-N-O-S-I-S. And this is best known for giving rise to the term Gnosticism. And it signifies a knowing, a deep knowing of our real nature as divine, or a knowing of the divine. And so science has really developed in this one-dimensional way. And it's developed through reductionism, through dissection, and it has really dissected what is into smaller and smaller parts. I don't know if you can remember when you were at school and you did biology, and certainly all the biology that I did was about cutting things up and seeing what happened to the parts. And so it was that at a moment in time, we ended up with the atom. And at that time, the atom was considered to be the ultimate building block of reality. And Newtonian physics, which had pretty much remained in force and dominated up until the 1920s, could not explain the atom. So hence we developed the world of quantum mechanics. And the atom was divided, and we encountered the subatomic world of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And in 1982, this is an important research team led by a French physicist, Alain Aspect. He performed what many people have referred to as the most important experiment in the 20th century. And my guess is that very few, if any, people on this call have ever heard of Alain Aspect. But what he discovered was that under certain circumstances, subatomic particles, and in particular electrons, can communicate instantaneously with each other, irrespective of the distance separating them. So even particles that may be 10 billion miles apart, they somehow instantly know what each other is doing. And the significance of this was it was the first research-based experiment that contradicted Einstein's long-held premise that no communication could travel faster than the speed of light. And it was this experiment that led many physicists, and in particular, there was a guy called David Bohm, B-O-H-N, who was probably the most significant theoretical physicist of the 20th century. And he said that Aspect's findings show that objective reality does not exist. It's simply a projection of our inner consciousness. And I want to come back to this a bit later because, you know, for us in our everyday lives of common sense with tables and chairs and houses, it's a bit of a stretch. But physicists have been saying this, not all physicists, but many physicists have been saying this since the 1960s and the 1970s. And the discovery of quantum mechanics then moved on to quantum field theory, where everything that exists, all reality, is divided into either particles or waves. And the difference between a particle and a wave is that a particle has materiality. It's located in one place, whereas a wave is non-local and it's spread over a much a wider space. And one of the most debated quandaries within quantum physics for a long period of time is whether an electron is a particle or a wave. And what I want to suggest is that human beings, you and I, are exactly the same as each one of these electrons. We have to decide whether we're a particle or a wave. Are we located within a certain body with specific memories and experiences? Is that all we are? Or do we exist over a much wider and vast space? And I want you just to hold that thought as we develop the quantum field a little bit further. So essentially, the quantum field is what lies beyond the two classical fields of the gravitational field and the electromagnetic field. And it's concerned with what is the ultimate field of existence. Again, this is the question really from thousands of years ago that has driven scientists and mystics. What is the ultimate field of existence? And so it was suggested that the quantum field is the ultimate field of existence. But in very recent years, this has given way to what is called superstring theories. And there are many, many different superstring theories, but they all agree that reality is rather like a seething, unseen ocean of rubber bands that are all vibrating at different frequencies. It's really the quantum field is looking at the idea that underneath all reality is this ocean of pure existence, or some people refer to it as an ocean of pure abstract intelligence. And the most important thing is that it's not observable. Scientists agree that it's impossible to observe the quantum field, but it's not nothing. It's not no thing. It's not dead. So it's unobservable, but it's teeming with unmanifest energy. And there's a certain difficulty in talking about this, but the quantum field is unseen. And in one sense, there's an idea of non-existence to it. However, it is referred to as a vortex of unmanifest energy. And it was discovered that the thing about this unseen energy is that it vibrates with a particular frequency. And the vibration and frequency of the quantum field corresponds to the ordinary things of everyday life. And that led people to suggest that reality as we know it, the reality we live in, is in fact predictable based on the quantum field, based on the natural vibration of this unmanifested field. Now, I just want to make a couple of other points, because everything in the entire universe, or we could even say the multiverse now, people posit that there's many different universes, is constantly in motion. That's uncontroversial. So everything is vibrating. And the only difference between one thing and another, between a table and a cloud, or a bicycle and a rabbit, or love and cynicism, is the frequency of the vibration. So if you're sitting at a table or sitting in a chair now, which appears solid, or even your body, the beautiful body that you currently inhabit, it might feel solid, but it's actually vibrating at a particular frequency. And when we use the expression, allow something to resonate with you, or some things resonate with you, some things don't resonate with you, what resonance means is that there's a match between the vibration and the frequency of two things. So we could say that the truth has a particular frequency, and we could say that the untruth or lies have a particular frequency. And when we resonate with something, there's a strong feeling, it's unseen, that there is a match or a connection between the vibration of the two entities. And physicists really for some time have acknowledged that the so-called material world is not material at all. It's energy vibrating at a particular frequency. And it's this reflection of the unmanifest pure existence that the outer world is made up of. And as David Bond said in the 1920s, and as many different physicists and many different mystics have said since, that the outer world is actually a projection of inner consciousness, in exactly the same way that the outer world that we operate in is a reflection of the unmanifest energy that exists within the quantum field. So one of the things I've been saying for a long time is that our inner intention, whether it's conscious or unconscious, creates outer reality. And for many people, that's a bit of a leap. But actually, there's many communities, mystics, yogis, the indigenous people, the Aboriginals, Native Americans, the Maasai, all of these people have been saying this for thousands of years. And the development of quantum field theory and superstring theory is science is catching up with what these wise men and women have been saying for 5,000 years. And what I want to do is to consider the relationship between this outer world, this so-called materiality, and the unobservable, unseen inner world. The relationship between the inner and the outer is of huge significance to each one of us and how we live our lives, how we create our outer reality. So again, the last thing I want to say about science is that science has been telling us for many decades now and been referring to the vastness of the universe. And I just checked these facts this morning, and I don't know if you know how many galaxies there are in the universe, but the current thinking, which is pretty much accepted by everyone, is that there's more than 2 trillion galaxies that we've named, that we're aware of. And the human mind can't really understand 1 trillion. So we're dealing with 2 trillion galaxies. And every one of those galaxies measures between 300 to 300,000 light years in diameter. Again, our mind can't really stretch to the enormity of that. And then if we come to the stars, there are in fact 20 times more stars than there are galaxies. And all of this is the matter of reality, the outer world. And again, what scientists have been telling us for a long time, but it's not something we dwell on, is that all of that stuff, the 2 trillion galaxies, the stars, all of that represents 4% of what is. It represents 4% of existence. And that 96% of the universe is space, is emptiness. 96% of everything that exists, if you can use the word exists, is unobservable and unseen. So again, it seems to me that this is a particular reality that science has come to. And what I want to suggest is that it's precisely the same with us in our human experience. Everything in the macro is a mirror for the micro and vice versa. We have 75 trillion cells in our body. Some of us have closer to 85 trillion cells. But every one of those cells contains what it is to be me. That the whole is a reflection of the individual. And what I want to suggest is each one of us, we are caught up in the 4% of what is the outer observable world of tables, chairs, offices, businesses, houses, other people, cars, books. All of the stuff that is seen, all of the stuff that is observable is the 4%, including our thoughts and our emotions and our bodies. So we spend something like 99% of our lives consumed by the 4%. Just think on that for a moment. We spend 99% of our lives rushing around, busying ourselves, frenetically engaged with 4% of what really exists. And in doing so, we completely miss the 96%. We're completely oblivious to the expansive, spacious, vast areas of the inner and outer universe. And one of the fundamental illusions into which we're all conditioned is the assumption that life moves in a linear sequence of cause and effect. This is an illusion of the 4%. Scientists, quantum field theory physicists have been telling us for a long time now that that is simply not the case. And in the quantum field, the space requires no effort. Our lives are constantly run on more effort, doing, activity. In the quantum field, effort is unimportant. In the quantum field, it's a happening and it's not linear. And actually, in the quantum field, it makes no sense to talk about past, present, and future. It just is. There's no separation. It's like an immense field of consciousness in which we're all connected. And if we can learn, if we can develop, if we can practice experiencing more of the 96%, then we would experience the truth for ourselves that we're all connected. Because in the 4%, we are conditioned, we are deluded into thinking that we're all separate. We're deluded into thinking that everything around us is separate. But again, scientists and mystics have been telling us a different story for at least 2,000 years. And on the whole, we've tended to ignore it. Of course, most people on this call have had the experience of stepping out of time, the experience of dropping into this quantum field. And one of the things that's been discovered is that when we're in the quantum field, the patterns of the brain are totally different to any other brain pattern experience. And that includes brain patterns that have been explored and researched while waking, while sleeping, during hypnosis, during any kind of drug-induced state, including anesthetic. So when we're in this quantum field, we are creating different patterns within our brain. They're a combination, I don't want to go into this right now, but it's a combination of alpha waves, and alpha waves are associated with being very, very present, and gamma waves, which they're really the two spectrums. Gamma waves are associated with expanded consciousness, but it's a unique pattern. And this whole inquiry for me really started with this discovery by this French physicist that particles billions of miles apart communicate in the present moment. And again, many of us have had experience of this. My brother, who lives in Australia, we speak very rarely, we see each other very rarely, but we're incredibly telepathic. And we have experience after experience of knowing that something's happened in a particular moment. And again, it's not a belief, it's an inner kind of knowing. Let's just say something about beliefs, because beliefs are really the arena of the 4%. All beliefs are really points of view. They're just different points of view in the observable world. And it's not, for me, that ultimately that body of knowledge is far more limited than the knowing that is possible from within the quantum field. It's a different kind of knowing that is probably more akin to intuition. And humanity, the human species, is currently moving through an evolutionary shift. Many people are saying this from many different genres and traditions. And for me, it's a biological evolutionary shift. And in this shift, we're really at quite a pivotal point in human history. We can either take our collective evolution to the next level, or we can lead ourselves and many other life forms with us to destruction and extinction. We've already destroyed a number of thousands of different species. And for me, the key factor, the only thing that's going to determine that is our individual consciousness. Because it's our individual consciousness that creates the outer reality. And this shift is away from the dominance of this 4%, away from a life of materiality, of linear time, of cause and effect, of Newtonian physics, and move towards an understanding of who we really are and what reality really is. It's moving towards an understanding of being more in the 96%, being more in the space, more in the stillness, more in the expansiveness, more in the love. Love does not have boundaries. There's a spaciousness to it. And really, it seems to me that teachers have been trying to tell us this for 5,000 years or more, whether it's, Lao Tzu or Adi Shankara or Abraham, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha. Hundreds of people have talked about this in different ways. And largely, we've ignored it and we've carried on down a very narrow corridor. And what we're being asked to do now is to move away from the noise into the stillness, to move away from the clutter into the spaciousness. And for me, this is really the categorical imperative of our time. This is the whole point for me of COVID-19 and whatever comes next. It's an encouragement, it's a support to move away from what I'm calling the 4%, move away from the frenetic activity, to find a different way of being in the world, a world of spaciousness. And very briefly, and then I'll open it up to questions. The question always arises, how do we support this transition? How does each and every one of us support this transition if there is an evolutionary shift going on? And the answer is that it's different for every single one of us. But the common theme is we need to practice experiencing what living in the 96% is like, what living with a sense of spaciousness within us and without us is really like. And to a large extent, for many of us, that is unfamiliar. It's certainly not normative. And some people have established ways in which we can do that, like yoga, like meditation, like prayer, like gardening, like play, like laughter, like dancing. And all of those things can support us, but they do need to come with a government health warning, because being human and being stuck in our habitual, compulsive, conditioned old patterns, we often approach these practices from the 4% perspective. And we create yet one more egoic practice, trying to be good at, trying to be better than Lara, better than Victoria, better than Anna at yoga. And this just misses the point completely. What we're being asked to do is to explore and develop a non-linear way of being, an effortless way of being. You could say a grace-filled approach to practice spaciousness. And, for me, all of us, every one of us on this call is a leader. We're at the evolutionary cusp. And many of us might be shy about that. We might lack confidence. We might be uncertain. We might be fearful or feeling inadequate. I'm not good enough. Welcome to the 4%. That's where we hang out. But if not us, then who? Who else is going to support this transition? And for me, the evolutionary thirst will always win through, because actually light is always stronger than darkness. But this is just a way. What I was wanting to do tonight was to talk about this vast, unexplored area which is within us and without us. And as I say, most of you, I'm sure, have touched that at various times. But it's how do we make that normative? Because when more of us begin to make that experience normative, when we operate from that place, one of the things I spend a lot of time doing is trying to get businesses to operate from that space. Because when a business operates from that space, instead of the dominant 4%, we're going to start creating a very, very different world and a very, very different culture. So I think I'll leave it there, Lara, and maybe we can have some questions or comments.
Yeah, okay. I'll wait for question to come in. In the meantime, Andrew, I just want to specify something and share something from my experience with starting to understand all this by working with you or other experiences I had, having friends like Maya and Victoria, with who I can really talk completely open and freely about all these things. Of course, at the beginning, I mean, Maya would tell you, I used to think she was completely crazy, and she would tell me things that
we can all agree on that.
Yeah, and with time, as time progressed, as you say, I enter a different frequency, different vibration. I just understand things differently, and they resonate with me totally differently. The problem at the beginning was because the people you want to share this with the most are the people closest to you, and they're not often, I mean, for some people they are, but they're not very often willing to hear these, or they just content in their 4% and they don't want to know much more. This is one of the reasons at the beginning that I was so keen on creating something to share what you are teaching me with so many other people that actually have the power to take this to the next step further, instead of spending all my energy at failing, trying to make them understand or pass on what you were teaching me to certain of them. And so it's just something I wanted to say, and to thank you for doing all this. And I hope that this is going to grow more and more, and that we will be very soon maybe reaching thousands more people who are prepared to, to open up to this idea, to grow their conscious and start maybe passing this on by their behavior or attitude or whatever to others. That's it. I just, if I have any here, Maya's here. 1 second, I'll unmute Maya. Sorry. No, Maya, are you still here? What did I do to Maya? I can't see her. Oh gosh. Sorry, I don't know what I've done, but here she is. Here she is. Okay. Sorry, Maya. I don't know what I've done to your video.
I think, yeah, I don't know what you've done to my video.
Sorry, I've pressed the wrong button.
I'm not supposed to be seen, but
I want to see you.
I have been giving her such headache over the years. And thank you so much for this. I just wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit more about the new research that has come out. Two things mainly. First of all is that I know that you've been speaking about the 4% as the matter and what we have actually created, but there's also the 96% that we haven't created that we can create, which is where we are going really at the right time now. But can you speak a little bit more about the heart and the power of the heart coherence? Because I think that there has been a discovery of 40,000 cells that actually have shown that the heart has neurons and is powerful than the brain. So can I let you explain a little bit more about this? Because I think this is really relevant for what we're all going through. And for the part of us where we are responsible, because the way things are going right now and with all the news and everything, it doesn't look like anyone wants us to really know the real science behind it, that we are responsible for our reality.
Yeah. It's a great question, Maya. And just dealing with the second bit first, it's what is so difficult for us to understand is, we've never lived at a time when the external reality and the external narratives, there is so much misinformation and so much contradiction and so much confusion. And what happens is when we try to enter into that, as we all do, we try to make sense of it. We try to decide what's right, what's not. We get caught up in the 4%, which is essentially a delusion or an illusion. So all we can do really is to drop down into our heart. I'll come on to that. Drop down into this inner spaciousness. And from that place is see what resonates with us. Because in that place, your body and your inner spaciousness will absolutely resonate strongly with some things and not with others. And children have a much better ability to do this than adults. And animals have an incredible ability to do this because they haven't been conditioned in so many years, over so many thousands of years, to into one part of the brain. But just going back to the first point, you're quite right. There's an organization in California called HeartMaths, Heart MATHS, and it's been around for a long time. It's a huge organization. It's a laboratory. And 20 years ago, they did the first experiments with the heart. the science is that the brain is effectively electromagnetic field, and the heart creates a separate electromagnetic field. And what they've discovered and what they've shown time and time again is the electromagnetic field created by the heart is 20,000 times stronger than the brain. Some people know this intuitively. And one of the first experiments they set up was that they wired people up with their brain and with their heart, and they randomly created a computer with a screen in front of them with 5,000 images. And 70% of them were benign. They were puppies, people holding hands, lovely scenes, sunsets. And 30% were macabre. They were distressing. They were car accidents. They were people being hurt, etc., etc. And what they discovered is between 5 and 6 seconds before every macabre image, the heart registered distress. And when they first ran this, none of the scientists could believe this. They didn't trust it. So they kept rerunning it and rerunning it. And every time they ran it, before the images that came up were completely random. They changed the program, they changed the order, and still the heart for every macabre image registered distress 5 or 6 seconds before the image showed. And eventually they concluded that there's an academic paper in which this is written. They concluded that the heart operates outside time. It was the only conclusion they could come to. And I would say that's quite self-evident to me now. It's quite self-evident to some people that the heart is much more powerful than the brain. You know, the heart does not experience fear. I think I'm right in saying, I need to check this, I think the heart is the only organ in the body that doesn't get cancer. But when we drop down into the heart, we're operating in a different way. There's no competition. There's no need to win. I don't need to make you wrong to make myself right. But if I'm operating in the brain, there's a lot of that going on. So anyone who's interested in that, Google heart maths. They've moved on a lot from when I was involved with them, and they're doing amazing research-based inquiry into the power of the heart.
And they have machines too, by the way, Andrew.
Yeah.
I have one of their things, which I do every morning and evening. And it's really it's for the coherence of the heart brain. And it's a kind of meditation.
It's brilliant.
It measures, yeah.
And of course, the within the scientific or medical world right now, the biggest area of research on the planet that has more billions of dollars thrown at it than cancer research is the gut. And what's happening is over the last 10 years, there's been a massive interest in the gut. The medical world call it second brain. There was a woman called Gerda Boyson in the 1960s that referred to the gut as the primary brain, because the gut has more influence on your mood, on your character. And there's huge research now going on with the gut, with the flora. And, you know, the biggest area of development is actually fecal transplants. They're now experimenting hugely with outstanding results. And this brings us to gut instinct. You know, one of the things we've lost that other communities, indigenous people have, is to make decisions from gut instinct. Our gut will tell us. Our heart will tell us. And yet we go back into the brain, which has this very narrow, very limited way of being in the world.
Andrew, I have a question. Christopher would like to talk to you.
Great. Hi, Chris.
Oh, sorry. I'm not doing well today, am I?
Oh, is that working?
Yes.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you. No, I'm interested in the quantum field thing. I was watching a video the other night about Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind or something, and they were talking about travel not at the speed of light, but travel at the speed of thought. And this electron appearing to be in two places. They talk about it as quantum entanglement or something, don't they? and I was, and you know, I like you have done a little science in the past, but I was interested. I'm also interested in this Buddhist law of attraction, synchronicity. This, you know, we talked the other day about setting up an attraction field. I know myself. I remember a few years ago, you know, I went to a particular party. I was not in a particularly good mood for whatever reason. And my wife said to me at the end of it, look, if you ever feel like that again, do me a favor and do everybody else a favor and don't come. Clearly I was sort of resonating this sort of, you know, I'm interested sort of not just business, but in our day-to-day interactions, whether it's with our families, with our friends, with our business colleagues, whatever. What it's a horrible expression, but what tips and tricks you'd have for sort of setting up this positive kind of energy? Because I'm aware that I'm capable of doing both, right? I mean,
me too. Yeah.
And I, as I grow older, and as you know, in the past I was a soldier, and sometimes we had to radiate different kinds of form of energy. As I get older in life, I want to have more positive impact and give more positive energy to people. And I was wondering, sorry, long rambling question, but wondering if you had any tips and tricks, if you like, for doing that.
So one of the things that many people know my wife, Anna, and we've been together 10 years. And for the first 5 years, we had quite a volatile relationship, and we both behaved very immaturely and childishly, and we used to fight a lot. And one of the things we developed, and we did very successfully, is when we got into an argument, not every time, but some of the time, when we got into the argument, we would stop and we would sit and we would both breathe into our hearts, and then one person would talk and the other person would just breathe deeply into their heart while the other person was talking. And it just makes a huge difference. It links into the last question. Sometimes when I'm in meetings in business or in social situations, and sometimes like you, Chris, you just become aware of a little agitation or whatever, I stop and just take some long breaths into my heart, because it changes everything. It's so simple and it's so difficult to remember to do it. But that is a really simple thing that will change the outer reality. It even will change how other people are talking. Because what you're not doing is you're not engaging in that very didactic, competitive, must-win reality. So that's one way. A second way is to just bring awareness to the fact that I'm in the grumpy state, and just be honest about that. It's not about trying to be fake and suddenly say, human beings are wonderful. Don't we live in a beautiful world? If you feel shit, feel shit. And just be more honest with that, and be completely immersed in that and take responsibility for it. And sometimes if we feel really badly, maybe when we're aware of that, we say, look, I'm going home, you enjoy yourself, have a great time. Or you take yourself off and you find ways of just dropping down into this inner space. And one of the things, we'll see how we go, we haven't got a lot of time, but we could do a very simple sort of inner meditation that will just take us into that. Because collectively, the beauty of coming together, Anna and I have a practice we do, which we did this afternoon, which is a 10-minute practice. When we do it together, it's 1 + 1 is 7. And the whole point of the attractor field is when we come together, we don't have to be in the same country or the same room. When we create a collective intention and a collective dropping down into the quantum field, it becomes easier for all of us. And you're right, Chris, that the two principles that we're talking about tonight are really, really simple. The first is we need to discover the deeper truth about who we really are. In the last talk, I don't think you were here, but we talked about identity and how we think we are our identity. We all walk around thinking we're the 4%. We're not. That's not who we really are. And if we can spend more time there, then we create a different outer reality. So if I spent a lot of my life seeing myself as deeply flawed, deeply broken, and I was mean and nasty, and anyone who's walking around thinking they're flawed, broken, and nasty will see the world as flawed, broken, and nasty. It can't be otherwise. If you see yourself as expansive, compassionate, kind, and loving, you'll see the world as expansive, compassionate, kind, and loving. It just can't be otherwise. So when we're in those moods of thinking, the world is a destructive, horrible place, go inside, change it within yourself, and you change the outer reality. And it's just practice, practice, practice. And I'm like you, Chris, I'm a novice. We're all at the beginning of this evolutionary shift, and we have to encourage each other to practice.
Thank you.
All we can do.
Okay, I have to read the question for you, Andrew. I have been experiencing so much telepathy recently. Is there a reason it is so strong at the moment during COVID lockdown?
Yes. COVID-19 has come in to support this shift, as I said. So many people are experiencing changes right now. I listened into a talk. I don't know if Fiona Arrigo is on the call. I think I did see her name at some point. But I listened to a talk by Fiona on Sunday. that was very informative. And one of the things she was saying is that everyone is changing at the moment on the physical level, the psychological level, the emotional level, and the spiritual level. We're all changing. And it's really important to bring our awareness to these changing. We're starting to notice different things. And telepathy is, if that's happening to you, trust it. Develop it, because it's an amazing part of who you are. We're all telepathic. We're all highly intuitive. And, sometimes people say to me, don't say this because you sound mad, just like Lara was saying. But I absolutely passionate that one day we'll all walk through walls and walk on water, because we're all energy. We're all, protons, electrons vibrating. And the only thing that stops us at the moment is the thought, I can't. So we walk into the solidity of the wall, but the wall is vibrating. So telepathy is a natural experience of being human. All these things are a natural experience of being human. And to me, it's exciting because we might think at any given moment we've fulfilled, 38% or 62% of our potential. I'm saying we're in the 4%. There's so much more. And, all we need to do is practice a little bit, as I think we're all doing. And we get those moments when we're in the flow of the quantum field. You just think, oh my God, this is amazing. And then we go back to the other stuff. So enjoy the telepathy, enjoy it, and celebrate it.
Okay. Yeah. Just there is a beautiful contribution from Fiona. She's saying we are being birthed into an age of telepathy and transparency.
Yeah. We are transparent. We're not solid. We're transparent.
Yeah. It's really beautiful when you dip into it.
It's really beautiful. And there's a lot of people on the planet like Fiona, like people on this call. We're not as small as we imagine. There's a lot of people speaking beautifully about this transition with great wisdom, with great depth of spaciousness. And we're not alone. We're all connected intimately.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any question? Any idea what would be your next topic, Andrew? Any suggestion?
Let's just take a moment. Wherever we are, let's just, as an invitation, just to close your eyes. Just take a couple of deep breaths, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Just a nice sigh as you breathe out. And on any in-breath of your choosing, take a deep breath into your heart, both your physical heart and your heart center, your heart chakra. Deep, deep breath. And breathe out again. And continue to take 2 or 3 deep breaths into the center of your heart. And on each in-breath, allow your heart to expand. Allow your physical heart to expand. On each and every in-breath, allow your heart center to expand. And on the out-breath, invite your heart to open. On the in-breath, the heart is expanding. And on the out-breath, your heart is opening, just like a flower to sunlight. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to take a deeper, longer breath. Now is that moment. Take a deep, long breath into the heart. And this time on the out breath, just fall back, fall down into the center of the heart. Keep falling, falling, falling into the center of the heart. And on the next breath, take another deep, deep breath into the heart. And again on the out breath, fall inwards, falling, falling into the center of your heart. Keep falling. And wherever you arrive, just take a moment to rest in the center of your heart. Resting There's nothing to do, nowhere to go. Resting in the very center of your heart. Resting in the essence of your being. And in this moment, just see if there are any boundaries, are there any sides to your experience right now? Resting in the stillness, in this vast inner spaciousness. There's no effort. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. And in this moment of being, just see if you're aware of the other people in this matrix. Resting, there's no effort. Just bring the awareness to the connection. And this experience is a little different for all of us, but whenever I'm in this experience right now, it's like I don't want to come back. I want to stay here because there's a sweetness, there's a sense of space, a sense of quietness. And this is the 96%. This is just a taste. This is a toe in the water of the place we can live from more of the time. And the more familiar this becomes, the easier it is just to rest. And then to act from this place, we can be very decisive. We can be very authoritative. We can achieve much more from this place. So I think, Lara, my love, we should leave people to enjoy themselves or to jump up and make a cup of tea or whatever it is they want to do, and we'll decide what we do next.
Okay, of course. We'll do that.
And thank you so much for...
Andrew, thank you so much. It would be nice maybe one day to talk about different ways to bring back this effect that we have when we reach that state into the 4%, into the everyday life, and maybe next time. Thank you.
We're in this together, and God bless you, the High Priestess of Knightsbridge, for bringing us all together. You are wonderful at that. All right, have a lovely evening.
Everyone. Bye.